So for me, my initial reaction was, well, she thinks she's a lesbian, but she's not really a lesbian. And I also felt like she was very selfish because it was something that definitely hurts my mom a lot. And so I blamed her for being selfish a lot, and I wasn't okay with it, at all. And as I started leaving Islam, it wasn't an overnight change. Like, I was still, even though I was, accepting and loving towards other gays, like, whatever, you can do whatever you want, it doesn't bother me, your life is your life. But this was my sister, and so it was different. And it took me a couple of years to become more okay with it and realize that actually I was the one that was being selfish. Once I started understanding it more from her side and talking to her about her experience, I realized how much internal struggle she was going through, and I really regretted not being there for her, and I really regretted pushing her away and, blaming her for a lot of our family situation, I guess.
Later on, as early as one realizes that they like other people, I knew I was attracted to girls. At first, I mean, it just made me feel like there was something wrong with me. And from a young age, I thought, I'm a bad person. I'm gonna go to hell. Growing up, I experienced the most amount of depression I had ever experienced. Sometime before the age of 10, I went through a suicidal phase. I don't know, I was terrified of actually being too serious about it. So I never really attempted anything, but that's how depressed and lonely I was, because I knew implicitly that those are things I can't talk about. It's interesting, but once I found love, and for the first time, I felt like that's what I want my life to be about. And that's when I was like, I'm done feeling like I'm a bad person and I'm gonna go to hell, because this is more spiritual than anything I've ever experienced before. So I remember thinking about, where did God come from? If God created the universe, where did God come from? It seems like it's redundant. If you don't need anything for God to exist, then why do we need God for the universe to exist? And I remember asking Mom that, and she said, thinking about stuff like that is fitna, because it gives a chance for the shaitan, for the devil, to kind of
play with your head.
Yeah, play with your head, and those are not things you should think about.
It's difficult for both sides. It's difficult for the person leaving Islam, but it's also difficult for the family members. I was on the other side. I, would comfort my mom. We would cry together and talk about it together and whatever. So it was, it's definitely not easy. It's just unfortunate that not enough communication goes on between the two parties, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all love each other, and we all want to be there for each other and support each other.
When my parents did find out that I was gay, they became even more controlling. And I was definitely, at that point, I wasn't gonna deal with that. So I moved out. It was kind of sudden. But my mom loves me so much, so a couple weeks later, we reconnected. It's been a rocky road in terms of my relationship with my families. Every once in a while, someone will stop talking to me as a result of being too out.
We're still trying to push boundaries little by little, but we've come a long way, and as a result, our mom has evolved a lot. Like, I have to give her credit, the person she was 15 years ago is completely different than the person she is today. She's really opened up a lot and accepted us a lot more than she ever would have. The quality of my life definitely has changed drastically from the time I was a Muslim to today. I feel like the phase of my life where I left Islam was when my life truly started. I feel like I've gained a lot of freedom and independence, and I'm so grateful that I get to make the decisions that I get to make and live the life that I currently live. The quality definitely improved, and I feel a lot more fulfilled as a person in the past 8 years that I've been an atheist versus, the time when I was...
I just realized how important it is to not be a follower, because accepting what others tell you makes you a sheep. And we were given, that was the biggest conflict for me. And, we were taught that God gave us a brain to think, but yet I was constantly told to believe what I was told. So I was like, okay, if God gave me a brain to think, then I should be able to explore my own beliefs.
And that kind of paved the way for me. It was, obviously I'm easier. I'm only an atheist, not also gay, which is, she's all over the place. But it definitely paved the way for me, because it made me realize that, hey, if you set your foot down and actually demand what you want, you're more likely to get it than if you don't ask for it at all.